range, just looking at this from just my vocal range, I can hit all the notes of an alto, of a mezzo, and of a soprano. So now I'm like, well, which one am I? Because I can do all three of these. Well, this is why we cannot only go off a vocal range, because you can't be three voice types all at once. Hey Voxstar, and welcome to From Singer to Artist. I'm Lara Chapman, award-winning singer and songwriter turned viral vocal coach and the host of this show. At VoxTape Studios, we help singers from all over the world level up their voices by teaching them the three fundamental skills all singers need: technique, awareness, and artistry. Whether you're looking to go pro or just develop your voice for fun, my team and I are here to help. Check the link in the description to book your first session or grab some of our other resources. Alrighty, are you ready? Let's get started. Today I want to talk about something that comes up in voice lessons more frequently than I would have expected at first, and I do believe that this is something that's important to talk about, and that is voice types or vocal classifications. So today I want to look at what are these voice types, how do you identify which voice type you fall under, as well as, is it even important? Does it matter if you know what your voice type is? Yes or no? And why? So let's get started with what are these voice types. Well, if you've heard the terms soprano, mezzo, tenor, that's voice types. So let's look at them from the lowest voice type to the highest. At the bottom, we have bass, and then a baritone, and then a tenor. So a bass would be a really low testosterone dominant or male voice. A tenor would be a high male voice. And then for our estrogen dominant or our female voices, we have altos, mezzos, and sopranos, or sometimes also called altos, soprano 2, soprano 1. Depends on who you talk to, okay? So those are the voice types or vocal classifications. It's the same thing. In contemporary singing, okay? In classical singing, there are more different voice types than just these six. And in classical singing, it's very important that you know these voice types. In contemporary singing, it's just these six voice types, okay? So how do you identify which voice type do you fall under? Well, there are two things that we need to take into consideration, and most people only take one thing into consideration and then they completely misdiagnose themselves. The one thing that everybody knows about, or most people know about, is range. What is your actual vocal range? What are all the notes that you can sing comfortably and not, like sometimes I can hit it and sometimes I can't, but like what's your actual vocal range? So there's if you just type into Google voice type ranges, it'll just give you the sheet right there. What are the different ranges of these different voice types? So you can compare your range to the voice types ranges and then determine, okay, which one of these voice types does my range overlap with? So that's pretty straightforward. You just, figure out, okay, what's the lowest note I can hit? What's the highest note I can hit comfortably, right? Again, not like I'm kind of in vocal fry down here. I'm not really singing anymore, but somewhere down here, that would be my lowest note, right? And then I'm trying to figure out on my piano, what is that lowest note? I just grabbed my phone real quick because I have like a tiny piano app on my phone, so I can see what is that lowest note. That would be C3, right? So I can hit that. Okay, cool, easy. And then I do the same thing for the high notes, right? Because now that I have my lowest note, I need to figure out what is my highest note. So something like that, probably. Okay, C sharp. Awesome, love it. I know that a soprano range goes up to a C6. I also know that an alto range goes down to goes down to a C3. So my range, just looking at this from just my vocal range, I can hit all the notes of an alto, of a mezzo, and of a soprano. So now I'm like, well, which one am I? Because I can do all three of these. Well, this is why we can not only go off of vocal range, because you can't be 3 voice types all at once. So range is only one aspect of it. The other aspect is your prima voce, the sweet spot of your voice, your tessitura, your comfort zone, whatever it is that we want to call it. And this is the part that everybody misses, or not everybody, but a lot of people miss. So basically what you need to figure out is, where do you feel most comfortable when you sing, and where do you sound the best when you sing? So a couple different ways you can figure that out. One is, the first question you can ask yourself is, what came naturally to me before I had any sort of vocal training? Another question is, what have other people commented on that they like about my singing? Another question you can ask yourself is, where does singing feel the best? And also, to you, sound the best? What comes easiest to you? What do you not have to work hard for at all? Just kind of like, yeah, this is easy. I can do this all day long. And then last but not least, what other singers out there have a similar tone to yours? This is important. This is very important, and a lot of people miss it. So for me, for example, if I'm singing and I'm comparing the tone of my voice, not the vocal range, just the tone of my voice, to, let's say, Ariana Grande, we have a very different tone, right? Ariana Grande is much brighter and lighter in her voice. My voice is much more heavy and more like, I don't know, a Lady Gaga or a Miley Cyrus or a Demi Lovato, that kind of style, right? So if I'm now Googling what's Ariana Grande's voice type, it's probably going to say soprano, because she is a soprano. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Even though I can hit all the notes of a soprano, that's a pretty good indicator that I am personally probably not a soprano, because Ariana Grande and I have very different voices. Then I'm left with altos and mezzos. So I'm probably more somewhere in that range. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky and a little bit more complicated, because even voice types are a subjective thing. Like, I would classify Lady Gaga, for example, as a mezzo, not as an alto. And somebody else might classify her as an alto. Same with Adele, for example. I would classify her as a mezzo, not as an alto. But some people will call her an alto. So it's like, well, which one is it? It's not an exact science, which kind of now goes into, well, does it matter if you know what voice type you are or not? And so every time somebody asks me, a singer asks me in a lesson, like, what voice type do you think I am? I always ask them, well, why do you want to know? And usually they don't have an answer. They're like, well, I want to know. And I'm like, I get it. It's terms that are used very commonly, terms that you probably have heard before, and it can give you almost like a sense of belonging, right? Like, oh, I am a soprano, so this is who I am. Now, unfortunately, these labels can sometimes be a little bit more counterproductive than helpful, because let me tell you, I have heard lots of singers say, oh, I'm an alto, I can't sing high. And I'm like, okay, but like, your voice type literally has nothing to do with your vocal range. I mean, yes, they are related, but not your capabilities of expanding your vocal range. It has nothing to do with it. Anybody can learn to do anything. And so I don't want these labels to hold you back. I kind of compare this to, when you listen to somebody belting and you're asking yourself, is this a belt or is this a chest dominant mix voice? Or when you're doing it yourself, I'm like, who cares? As long as we're getting the tone, like the sound that we want to get, and it feels good to make that sound, I don't care if you want to call it a chest belt or a chest dominant mix. It's just a label, and different people have different definitions for these different labels. And so that makes it a little bit more complicated. So I'm like, let's forget about these labels. They're not super helpful anyways. And for me, it's kind of the same thing for your voice types. I usually tell the students if they're asking me, well, what voice type am I? And then they can't give me an answer as to why they want to know. And some people can, but most people can't. And I usually tell them like, look, I'm happy to give you an idea of where I think you probably fall under. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What's much more important is that you know your prima voce, right? Like you know what is your range and you know what your prima voce is, but what label we want to give it, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just a label. And so for me, I'm like, if I'm looking at my own voice, well, I would consider myself an alto, more specifically, high alto, low mezzo, somewhere in there. But then, somebody else out there would probably say like, well, there's only a handful of true contraltos or altos out there. And, it's a very rare voice type. And unless you have this very specific thing in your voice, you are not that. And I'm like, okay, cool. We just have a different definition for what an alto is now. And so do you see where I'm going with this? It can get a little problematic. And now the label is making it more confusing rather than helpful. So instead, focus on, here are all the notes on a piano that I can hit, love it, and separately, what is your prima voce? And that is the more important part, your prima voce. That is your sweet spot, because at the end of the day, well, let's answer the question, why do you want to know what your voice type is? Well, usually the answer that I would be looking for is, well, I'm hoping that this can help me pick the right songs for my voice, right? So that you can sing songs that fit your voice well. Because as an alto, you probably are not going to sing Ariana Grande songs, or at least not without adjusting the key of those songs. Because otherwise you're just kind of struggling through these notes because it's not where you feel most comfortable. So that's usually the goal behind understanding what your voice type is, besides, getting the feeling like you belong somewhere. And so I'm like, okay, cool, I understand that. But actually, you don't need to know what your voice type is to pick the right songs for your voice. You need to know what your prima voce is to pick the right songs for your voice. And range is not really that important for that. Yes, it's a factor, but it's not that big of a deal. So I get it. These are labels, like voice types are labels that we hear left and right. We hear other people talk about all the time. So, sure, let's figure out what your voice type is. And so that you feel like, yep, I can tell people like, this is my voice type. Love it. Awesome. But at the end of the day, focus on your prima voce, the sweet spot of your voice, through, these different things that you can do, like asking other people what they like most about your voice. Where does it feel the best? What could you do naturally before you had any sort of vocal training? And what other singers out there sound similar to your voice, and then doing their songs, right? So for me, I would stick more to Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, not Ariana Grande, but Lady Gaga, Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, those kinds of songs, not like soprano songs like Ariana Grande, for example, right? So that is much more important. Now, there are a couple times where knowing your voice type can be helpful, even in contemporary singing. Like I said, in classical singing, that's a completely different horse. Is that even a saying? Is that even a term? That's a completely different horse? Probably not. But that's a completely different thing. There, you do want to know what your voice type is in contemporary singing. It doesn't matter so much. It can be helpful in choir settings, like if you're singing with other people and there's like harmonizing going on. So it is helpful if you're part of, the right voice type for you specifically. But even then, it doesn't matter that much because, for example, with me, like I said, I would identify most as an alto or a low mezzo. But in school, when I was singing in choir, I was always placed with the sopranos because I could hit the soprano notes and they needed people to do that. And so even though I'm an alto, I was with sopranos, and that's like the furthest away from what I could possibly do. So, it doesn't matter that much, but it can be helpful there. Or, if you are auditioning and they ask for your voice type, it is good to have an idea of where you stand, right? So you could say like alto mezzo range, or you could say true soprano, or whatever is you feel like your voice type is, and then go with that, and just, have that label, because it makes it a little bit easier to communicate with others. But as far as your own vocal growth goes, as your own vocal journey goes, picking the right songs for your voice, all of that, I could not care less about voice types. But I do have an exercise for you to help you figure out what is your voice type. If you don't have like a piano that you can figure out what's your lowest note, what's your highest note, by the way, you can just download the app Tiny Piano in the App Store or Google Play Store to your phone. And it's literally just a piano, and you can press the keys and see, okay, which one's my highest note, which one's my lowest note. So that's super easy. You can do that. But I also created an exercise with some of my friends, some of the coaches here at VoxTape Studios, and other amazing singers too, where we walk you literally from bass to baritone to tenor to alto to mezzo to soprano, and you can sing along with us and see, okay, which one of these ranges feels the most comfortable for me, and also tone-wise, which one of these singers that's demonstrating am I the most similar to? So I created this exercise out of the song Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes. I think. Is this called a song by the White Stripes? I think it is. That song. Created an exercise out of this to help you determine your voice type. So let's actually do this exercise together right now so that you can already get a better understanding for your voice type.
I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce?
All right, perfect. Moving on to baritones.
I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce?
And finally, the high male voices. Let's move on to the tenors.
I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce?
Amazing. Thank you guys. Moving on to the girls. I'm actually singing the alto part, so I'm going to sing with you. I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? that's for my low ladies. Right, moving on to mezzos.
I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce?
Amazing! And finally, let's move on to our sopranos.
I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce? I'm looking for my voice type. What's my prima voce?
Okay, awesome. So I hope that this was helpful to just kind of see, okay, where does your range fall, and also where does it feel easiest to sing, and which one of these singers do you feel like was most similar to you as far as tone goes, so you have a little bit of a better understanding for your voice type. But again, if we want to summarize it, it doesn't really matter what your voice type is, as long as you know where you feel the best and where you sound the best, what comes most naturally to you. That's what matters. Your prima voce. That's what's going to help you pick the right songs for your specific voice, not necessarily your voice type. If you now know what your voice type is, please let us know in the comments. I'd love to see what different kinds of voices we've got out here. If you're still confused and you're like, girl, I don't know what's happening, you always have the option to send us a video for a vocal evaluation where, we can pay attention to that. If you're specifically asking for like, what do you think is my voice type? We'll be able to let you know there. So if you're interested in a vocal evaluation, just check the link in the description, and we'll be able to help you there. But yeah, let us know in the comments if you know. If you don't know, ask away. We're here to help. And that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one.